So I'm Max Flights. I'm actually a local real estate agent with Keller Williams. I don't know if you can tell by this particular backdrop, but I have a pretty exciting sit down today with Jason, and we're talking about something that's very sensitive to most people, and it's because it is an exposure to people's probably shortcomings when it comes to their long-term thinking, and it's wealth and financial planning. And I brought you in because I think a lot of people feel like me, where they're either apprehensive or nervous to show someone their entire money situation, or they're kind of coming from the stance of like, I can do it by myself, I know what I'm doing, which can be dangerous to themselves because most of us don't have an education in that area. And you know, for everyone who's going to be watching this, why don't you introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you do?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Jason Ducat, a financial planner, financial representative with Northwestern Mutual. And what I do is I work with people to help map out a strategy to be efficient and intentional with their money. And whether that's saving for education, buying a home, or planning for a comfortable retirement, it's a personalized, comprehensive strategy for them because everybody, as you're well aware, is different. Everybody's coming from a different place. They prioritize different things. And their history is always going to be different as well. Yeah. So I can make an analogy to a lot of different roles. It would be like a doctor, somebody going to the doctor and kind of explaining their health to them. It could be a little intimidating and sometimes maybe a little embarrassing.
You mean when we lie about like the drinks per week sort of thing?
You know, how often I floss when I go to the dentist. Yeah, it's stuff like that. And they can tell, right? But, you know, there's also no judgment because they've seen worse, they've seen better, and it's all about, you know, meeting the person where they are and then helping them get to where they want to be.
Do you have moments like that where it is almost like a discovery conversation where they're coming in with a little bit of a wall up? Like, obviously, if I show all my cards, like, I'll feel very exposed, whether that's in poker or demonstrating that maybe my goals are not on the same timeline as my actual realistic situation. Do you find that you're kind of breaking down walls on your first sit down and really kind of demonstrating the value?
I mean, that's what the first conversation is always about. You know, if this was just a pure math equation, I could ask for a copy of your 401k and your checking account and then give you a recommendation later. But like you said, it's a conversation first to figure out what's important to them.
Numbers to them, I feel
later.
Like,
so
again, coming from that stance of like, I've done this, like, I feel like I've been managing my finances already. Do you kind of come from the mindset of like a Sherpa? Like, these are the paths that we have proven to be successful. And I just want to figure out where you are on the mountain, because I think a lot of us have a little bit of a illusion that we're higher on the mountain than we may be, or that we're just not looking up.
Or the other way?
Yeah, or the other way. Is that common, that people are further up than they think?
I think there's a lot of, unless you've sat down and done the math and looked at the projections, a lot of people don't really know what that 401k at work is going to mean later. So they don't understand what retirement is going to look like. And in some instances, they're like, oh, I'm doing a little bit better than I thought. In other instances, we're probably right about where they thought they were going to be. And it's all about then optimizing, you know, their financial situation again to get them to where they want to go. But like you said, we got to meet people where they are. So like a Sherpa, yeah, I guess so. I like to tell people that my job is not to tell you what to do with your money. My job is to educate and help you make the best decisions, again, to be efficient and intentional with your money. So I think one of the best examples I could give would be, and you know, this speaks to real estate, would be paying down a house faster than your minimum mortgage payment. Some people understand that maybe the math means you make your minimum payment and you take any extra and invest it because you could gain more than you're paying down your debt with. Other people are going to sleep better at night knowing that their mortgage is taken care of. So as long as you understand the considerations and the risks with each one, then you can go ahead and make the decision on what works best for you.
You actually touched on a really interesting topic for me, and it's because I have clients who have purchased in the upper 2% for their mortgage rate, all the way up to like 3.5%. And I'm not a financial advisor, and I always have to disclose that when I'm having those conversations. But they asked me, like, Max, should I be making double payments? Should I be making triple payments on my 3% interest rate on my home? And I have always come from the stance of like, since the money is so cheap, again, not a financial advisor, I always would be like, hey, you should seek someone who knows what they're talking about specifically. But it might be worth it to explore other investments to dump that extra payment that you have in to watch the growth. Because right now you're paying down the equity in your house, which is fantastic. You're building wealth. But is it at the same rate in which you'd put it into a mutual fund or your 401k? Have you had conversations like that, or am I misleading people?
No, I mean, that's exactly right. It's really, there's good debt and there's bad debt. I mean, ideally, nobody really wants that at all. But the equity you're building in your home at 2-3%, obviously interest rates are a little bit higher right now.
Yeah.
But that is awesome. Like, that is cheap money to purchase. So again, if it makes you feel better, throwing an extra $100 or $200 at it, go for it. However, just understand that extra $100, $200, if it's returning 5-6% versus paying down at 2-3%, you're actually going to get more for that money later than you would just building that equity in your home.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I'm happy to know that I haven't been just misguiding people.
For sure.
That would be awkward. What happens, like, this is probably a pretty popular situation for people of my age, where because home buying right now is really difficult for a lot of people because it requires a lot of cash on hand, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. But for people right now who are renting a home, but they have $15,000 to like $30,000 in the bank, to where they're not quite ready to make a leap into their forever home, do you have any advice for people like that, whether or not they should be like investing into a smaller home outside their area, or if they should be like pursuing a different investment vehicle?
Yeah.
Especially like if they're not making tremendous amounts of money where they're adding to it regularly.
So this is a great question and a perfect example of what financial planning kind of involves. So I'll say it again, about being intentional and efficient with your money. So whatever money you have for a down payment, let's just call it $15,000.
Okay.
We don't want to put that in the stock market if you're planning on buying a house within the year. Stock market crashes, that 15 turns into 8, and all of a sudden everything just kind of falls apart. Similarly, if the plan is maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the road, and we can withstand some market fluctuations, history tells us, past performance is not a guarantee of future results, but history tells us that you're going to earn a better interest, or you're going to get a better return on that money if you can let it kind of cook longer than, say, putting it in a CD, which would be my recommendation if it's, again, within a year. Keep it liquid, keep it safe, guaranteed return, a little longer out, market fluctuations. I think real estate as an investment is really better positioned in the 10-plus year range because, again, say you have a down payment for a car that you want to make, you're not going to buy a property and then try to flip it or sell it or liquidate it in 6 months to buy that car. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's different buckets that you can put your money in depending on when your goals are. Retirement further down the line, home purchase, car purchase, wherever it is. Just be smart where you're putting that money to make sure that it's safe and has the best return possibility for you, based on when that goal is. No,
I actually really agree with that, because I do have a lot of clients where during like our initial conversation, they'll say, hey, I want to buy a home and I want to be in there for 3 years, and then I'll, kind of upgrade and move from there.
A starter home?
A starter home, yeah. And the problem can be, unlike the past 3 years where appreciation is just unprecedented. Like going back to normal where we're at 4 to 6% a year, which is still fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I have real reservations when we talk about like amortization schedules of loans where you're paying almost all interest up front. And there's a cost expenditure, because I know a lot of people with some of the costs that it takes them to get into the home, they just kind of forget that. That doesn't, like, if you're looking at it as like a business plan, they forget closing costs. They get into the home. They're like, I've been here 3 years. I'm ready to sell this home, pull out the equity, kind of neglecting the fact that like Uncle Sam needs his cut. There are commissions involved. You do have to pay off your mortgage, which in the first 3 years are mostly interest payments.
Yep.
So when you're walking away from your first time home house in under 3 years, profitability is very slim. So that long-term thing is kind of universal between the two, unless you're doing something very unique, like a flip project, and you
Sure.
know what you're doing. Because I can't tell you how many over-rehabbed homes I go into, and they're trying to justify the price of the home by the cost they put in, kind of neglecting the fact that we're all subject to fair market.
Right.
What are some of the like pitfalls that you can kind of predict when people come to sit down with you that you can help them avoid? Is it strictly normally in one of their investments, or do you see like a pattern?
Okay. So when we sit down and we start developing a plan, we're going to project out like this is how things are looking based on what we're doing today. But like with everything, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So part of what I do, or one of the hats I wear, is almost like a personal trainer. Like you tell me I want to lose weight, or I want to get stronger, I'm training for like a marathon or something. There are going to be different exercises or routines that you're going to follow. Once we design that routine, I'm going to encourage you to exercise, because if you don't actually follow the plan, you're not going to get the results. So if we sit down and we develop a strategy and a budget and an investment schedule and whatever it is it involves, but you're not actually contributing towards this and you're not exercising or working the plan, then there's only so much I can do. So if somebody has a tremendous amount of credit card debt, and we sit down, we figure out a pay down schedule, whether that's the debt snowball or the debt avalanche. Maybe there's another type
Dave Ramsey, debt snowball.
The Dave Ramsey concept there. And he's got some good ideas. They take you only so far, I believe, but it's a good place to start. But if we're not then paying down that debt on schedule, we're not going to overcome it to then move on to the stuff that is really the kind of the fun stuff, the investments and the watching your money grow and strategizing and planning for all the things you want. So,
and I think a lot of people are guilty of that. I personally, myself, earlier in my life, have used my credit card like an ATM, where like I'd pay it off and I would spend it again, and I'd pay it off and I'd spend it again, with this falsehood that I'm growing. But really, the financial picture, because a sobering moment is when you talk to people like you, and they're like, "You've been doing this, and you've never really improved." And that was the first 4 years out of college. And granted, there were some business experiments that I was trying, and I was very poor in putting things on credit cards. And then some of them would work out and some of them wouldn't. But I think for most people, like, I was looking into that. I read an article, and it was just sobering as to most people's financial situation. I think, like, it said that 2019 census reported that the average Wisconsin household income was like $64,000.
Okay.
Of those people, the average carrying cost of their credit cards was around $10,000. Of those people, the average person was paying about $560 to $700 in their car payment, and then not including their living expenses. And what it was talking about is everyone is doing this keeping up with the Joneses, and none of the Joneses are actually wealthy. They're all just leveraging themselves to the eyeballs. Do you see that in your profession, where sometimes it's more of a sobering talk to bring them back down to the point where they can build again, like build that foundation? So I guess for my question is, like, what does that foundation look like? What is the baby step conversation that you have for, like, just up front with people?
Yeah. Well, to the first point, envy is the thief of joy. If you're always comparing yourself to others, you're never really going to take the time to appreciate what you have and where you are, and really kind of enjoy your own self-success or your own life. So, but foundationally, it always starts with a budget. Jeff Bezos has a budget. General Electric has a budget. You should have a budget, whether that's tracking down to the penny, or maybe more of like an envelope system, or just even just whatever methodology you have, you should have one. Just to understand what's coming in, what's going out, and what money is left over that allows me to save and invest towards my goals, right? So that would be kind of the first block in the foundation. After that, after we understand the cash flow situation, really encourage an emergency fund. Okay. 3 to 6 months of expenses. If you don't have any income and you need to live on something while you're looking for the next, job or opportunity, whatever it is, we want to make sure that you're not living on credit cards and kind of growing that 30% bad debt.
Yeah.
Like credit cards would be considered bad debt versus home equity, a mortgage or home equity. So budget, emergency fund. We want to talk about some sort of income protection. If you're not able to earn an income for one reason or another, everything else kind of suffers. You don't get to save, you don't get to invest, you don't get to take vacations, your retirement's going to get delayed, you're probably eating, not the fancy ramen. If you like ramen, I like ramen, so I don't want to dump on ramen.
I love ramen.
So whatever cheap food you don't like that you don't want to eat is, we want to avoid that by making sure that the paycheck is always there. Another block in the foundation would be some sort of life insurance, generally to help protect and support the people that rely on you and that paycheck. If you're not around to save and provide for your child's education, worst case scenario, something happens, you didn't come home last night.
Yeah.
Life insurance is there to help provide. It's not going to fill every gap, but it's something. And then the last piece really is more of just a benefit of having a worker's benefit of like healthcare, because obviously we need to take care of ourselves. That's something that I can't provide directly. That would just be like I said, an employment benefit. But budget, emergency fund, income protection, life insurance, and healthcare. Once we kind of got that squared away, and it doesn't matter where we're starting from, whether we're young or we're old, or we have a little bit of money or a lot of money, I think one thing people are intimidated by when they want to talk to a planner, or they think about talking to a planner or an advisor, is they say like, oh, I don't, Jason, I don't have a lot of money. Well, maybe that's because you don't have a good plan. So,
Yes.
do you wait to start working out, or do you wait to work out
until you have like a health emergency and somebody tells you have 3 months? Like, that's the reason that I kind of was very open to speaking with you, is I think a lot of us think that everything's going well when it's going well. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of us are going like, statistically every 10 years, you're going to have a financial emergency.
Yeah.
And the thing, like for my industry, when we're talking about rental real estate, a lot of people go, oh, this is the income I make minus the mortgage, that's my profit margin. I go, ha ha. Actually, it's how much you make minus, and you should pay yourself for the property management, but that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is capital expenditures, which is like you need a new furnace, you need a new roof, you need siding. That should be taken out of your profit margins before you get to your spendable income. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people, when it comes to rental real estate, go, I have a wonderful performing portfolio, and ignore the fact that they put a $20,000 roof on. And year over year, you're still paying for that cash that came out of pocket.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much the same. Like if your cash coming to your home is like your salary, you mentioned that there's programs in place that like, if you can't work, like nobody talks about that. I think a lot of people assume that they're always going to be employed. They're always going to have work. They're not going to get hurt. They're not going to have health issues.
Mm-hmm. It's your greatest asset isn't your home or your car. We could talk about your friends and family, but financially, your greatest asset is your ability to earn an income. Most people, I'm 41, let's say the 30 and 40 year olds still got 20, 25 years of work left ahead of them. There's millions of unearned dollars ahead of them left.
Yeah.
You're a millionaire already. You just have to wait to get it all. Yeah. So that pile of money is your greatest asset, because everything, again, the vacations, the education, retirement, is all coming from that pile. So protecting it, you insure your house, you insure your car, you should insure your income, because if that suffers, everything else does too.
No, that's fair. I think for most people, like when you hear wealth advisor or financial advisor, it's intimidating because you are exposing yourself. But I think part of that is like, it's intimidating to go to the gym. When you go to the gym for the first time, it's intimidating. When you go buy your first car, it's intimidating. Mm-hmm. When you go buy your first home, first dates. Oh my gosh, intimidating. But it's a necessary step to get to the end goal. And I'm like a piece of the puzzle that's removed from the overall tower that you're building. So there's a point in everybody's like kind of hierarchy of building, because you said a lot of people don't have money. So they're coming to you kind of going like, I don't know what you can tell me because there's nothing to manage. And it's like, yeah, but it's planning too. Because that's the part that escapes a lot of people I talk to when I talk about financial planning. They're like, I have nothing like to show him that I would plan.
Probably even more important than to have a plan is to figure out why you think that way, if that's actually the case, and then what we could do to help get you out of that situation and into where you want to be. So the paycheck to paycheck thing, it's tough and real, and I've been there, and it's no fun. But if you earn $1,000 a month or $10 million a month and you spend all of it, then there's not a whole lot I can help you with. So it could be a little tough at first, kind of carving out like, all right, I need to find even $50 a month to start saving and contributing towards something. So there's some self-reflection at first.
Yeah.
There's never any judgment. I've seen the worst. I've seen the best. I'm here to help. So like going to the doctor, if you don't actually tell them how you're feeling and what's wrong with you, there's only so much that they can do. So when you come to me and you're a little bit guarded, which I can understand, it's intimidating. But if you're not open, then there's only so much that we can do.
I mean, it's just such an integral part that, like, we're not taught financing or personal financing at any level of education.
I remember learning how to write a check in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I took an accounting class, which the only thing I've retained is I don't have to look at the number pad when I do it. The rest of it is gone.
Yeah.
And I think the shame of it is we're all making the same mistakes. Like, whether or not you make a lot of money or you're making a little bit of money, we tend to be making the same mistakes, just at different levels. And there are a few people, like, if you follow like the millionaire next door kind of mentality, where like, drive used cars, do your best to invest in yourself to make a higher income, but like keep your expenditures low. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people, rarely, but there's a lot of them, but it's not the majority of people who can do it, who are very capable, but without a second opinion. Because it's like reading a paper you wrote, where you read it the way you thought you wrote it.
Yeah, it sounds great in my head.
Yeah. And then you show it to somebody else, and they're like, oh, Bud, we have some work to do, which was totally doable, and it's the plan in place that makes all the difference.
Even the best writers have editors, that come in and help them take a step back and look at what they're doing. So, Tom Brady still had a strength and conditioning coach at the end, even though I'm sure he understood what he was doing.
Yeah.
Still had somebody to keep an eye out for him, so...
I mean, I think a big factor of it is a little bit of humility, too. Because in my personal business in real estate, I have a business coach. I have somebody to look over me and be like, Max, you're talking about a very risky thing with the payoff is like 5 to 12 years down. I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, not right now. Let's wait till we build up the team. Let's wait till we do this. Because right now, what it is my client base has become peaked. So I'm sure for a lot of people out there, I want to help every single person at every single stage. It can be very time consuming to do that. So it's important for me to prioritize. And I think that's the same with everyone. I think people are reaching for what they want their life to be and then get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because without like the step-by-step plan in place, without that second set of eyes, I think a lot of people misstep.
And having it all in your head, if you're thinking about a good start, but really you want to write it down, get it in some sort of format where you can revisit it later, update it, understand what you were thinking then versus how it compares to now. So when we run a plan for somebody and we have our reviews, whether that's, at least twice, we like to do it at least twice a year. Some people want to go quarterly. Some people are fine just doing it once a year. But the whole point is we're going to come back. We're going to look at where we were, how we're tracking based on, again, what we said our goals were and how we're going to contribute towards those. So business planning, it's all about planning. Business is going to have a better chance of succeeding with a plan. You're going to have a better chance of getting your, health outcomes with a exercise routine that you stick with.
Yeah.
Nobody just shows up to a work site without a blueprint and just like you have to, it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
You have to plan for these things. So, business planning, financial planning, sheet music, like it's written down for a reason.
I get that. And honestly, I think one of the best ways that people can just take the first step is just reaching out to you. Is that true?
For sure. I mean, there's kind of 2 ways that we can go about doing things. I don't charge a fee, so there's no cost or obligation in a conversation. A lot of people then ask, like, well, Jason, what's in it for you? I am compensated based on the value that I provide people. And obviously they have to trust and understand that what I'm suggesting to them is in their best interest.
Yeah.
Because if they don't think that that's the case, then it's never going to work out for either of us. So, commissions and fees, you're going to see those. They're kind of dirty words sometimes. They're everywhere.
Familiar.
Yeah.
Very familiar. Yeah.
But it's really about bringing the most value to the client or to the customer. So some people like to DIY their finances, which is great because they tend to care about it a lot more. But to do it well, you need knowledge, enthusiasm, and time. And very often when you're DIYing, you're probably not going to have all three of those all the time, especially the people that have young kids and they're raising them. They're going to want to go to baseball games or concerts or family vacations, and they're not going to spend 8 hours a week rebalancing their portfolio or updating their investment objectives. So that's when having a professional on your team like myself. We also recommend having an accountant or a CPA that you trust and work with.
I get that.
As well as probably some sort of lawyer or attorney to help with your estate and trust and will. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm a planner. I am licensed in insurance, but I'm not an insurance salesman. I'm licensed in investments, but I don't consider myself strictly an investment advisor. I have to know enough about all of these things in order to give holistic, comprehensive advice to people.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what? I'm going to put all your information out so that people can reach out to you when they feel the need. And honestly, thank you very much for doing this, because just having a sit down is way different, a lot less intimidating than when you go into like a building and an office. So really appreciate your time, man. Thanks for sitting down.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.